live from Studio A in the Annenberg School at USC. This is the Talk of Troy, where we talk a big game but have even bigger opinions. I'm your host, Josh Sacher, alongside Jude Ocanas.
Good.
And today we have brought back a very special guest, Professor Jeff Fellenzer, Heisman Trophy voter, coming in for our last show of the semester to give his thoughts on the Heisman ballot upcoming. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time being here.
I am excited to be invited back to the Talk of Troy. Thank you very much.
Well, you're always welcome, I should say that.
Thank you,
You're
sir.
always welcome.
I'm honored.
Yeah. Well, you've been a Heisman voter since 2007.
Right.
The day is almost upon us. December 13th, we are in the month. We're almost there. Before we kind of get into the picks, who you're thinking, the ballot is pretty much just arrived at your front door. Curious about how this next week looks for you. And in terms of Heisman voting for people that aren't as aware.
Well, the ballot is always due the Monday after the conference championship game. So it's always due on Monday, 2 o'clock Pacific time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's wall-to-wall Saturday, and then sort of gather my thoughts, which I'll be doing throughout the day Saturday. On Sunday, I'd like to have it in place and press the send button. It's all done electronically by Sunday evening. Mm-hmm. Which is usually when I'm doing it anyway, when I'm doing my weekly work is usually on Sunday night while it's still fresh and I can go to different sources if I need to. I've pushed it a few times. One year in particular, I can remember it was late morning and around lunchtime, and I had lunch with two people whose opinions I really valued, and I was really debating between not who I voted to for the award to win it, but who I had second and third, because that's really important. I put a lot of thought into that.
Who gets sent to New York?
Because who gets to go to New York, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And I was really torn, and so I wanted the opinion, and I got this call from the coordinator of the West Coast voting saying, your ballot's not in. Because that's the big fear is like make sure that everybody's ballot gets in.
Yeah, of course.
Believe it or not, it's something that could slip because it's only one day where you actually vote.
Yeah.
And so you really have to just make sure that you have lots of different reminders around you not to forget to do it. And I said, I know. I got home and then I filed it and we were fine. But I don't think it'll be that dramatic this time. I expect I'll have a decision by Sunday night and then probably send it off then.
So cool to see the thought process behind it all. Jeff, you were talking about before the show about how they've kind of switched up the process a little bit, and they used to send the ballot a little earlier before the championship games upcoming this weekend, and people used to send their ballot in before the championship game. How much impact would you say this Big Ten championship game has on Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza and Ohio State quarterback Julian Sains? They're right now two of the top favorites to win the Heisman. How much of an impact does this game have on their chances?
I think it's going to be huge. In fact, I think there are probably a lot of people that have, I know there are a lot of people who would have Mendoza won and have had him that way for a few weeks, as I have had, to be honest, just in sort of my, rough, I do a ballot each week, as you know, from my classes. It's what I'm thinking. It's not anything I'm locked into, but I think the last few weeks there's probably been a lot of voters that have elevated Julian Sain, and he's probably right there. It's probably a 1-2, 2-1 between those two would be my guess. So I would say this is what everybody is going to tune in the voters to say. Let's see, and they're going to go head to head. I mean, it's pretty awesome that it works out that those guys that are the presumed leaders would be playing in a game of that magnitude.
Yeah.
Undefeated 1 versus 2 and maybe 1 and 2 in the Heisman race.
Definitely. And just a quick follow-up on that. I know we've talked when we had you on the show earlier in the year about the difference between individual success and team success. If we run into a scenario where Mendoza throws for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, but Ohio State ends up winning the game with a ground game and Sain doesn't really do that much, how much does that impact one of the teams going undefeated, winning the Big Ten championship, but the other player outplaying the quarterback? How does that impact it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, this whole idea of team success, how much you should factor it in. I always say that I consider it one of those tiebreaker categories. Like, you'd like to think that the player is playing well and lifting his team, so it's important that the team does well because it shows the value especially at that quarterback position, which I consider the most important position in sports. I think, in that scenario, if I wouldn't assign all of the blame. They always say quarterback gets too much credit and too much blame. So I wouldn't want to go too overboard if and either one were to have just a great individual game like that and the team didn't win, you wouldn't think it would be the fault of that quarterback. He had a great game. So I wouldn't want to penalize the player there. But I would say it's if they lift the team to victory, it's just, it's another feather in their cap. Mendoza kind of has had a Heisman moment, the game against Penn State. And maybe Julian Sayin could have kind of a Heisman moment. He might be missing a single moment. He's been so good throughout the year, getting the ball to the receivers, the gifted receivers, and just managing that team so well, and an incredible completion percentage, record breaking. Amazing, and he hasn't had to have carry a team individually, particularly. He's just been so incredibly consistent. But then guiding that team to a first win in 4 years over Michigan, doing it on the road, that was in some ways a Heisman moment without a single play, but just taking that team on the road and winning there. Hadn't been done in 4 years, so kudos to him.
And so we're talking a lot of Big Ten quarterbacks, but I think one quarterback interested in the SEC is Ty Simpson. Granted, he doesn't have the numbers. When you look at a Julian Sayin, when you look at a Fernando Mendoza, they have the passing touchdowns. But I look at a guy in Ty Simpson, right? He's had to play in a gauntlet of an SEC schedule. So I'm curious for you, do you weigh kind of that strength of schedule when it comes? Because, I can pull it up. They had Georgia, Vandy, Missouri, and Tennessee in 4 straight weeks. He went 4-0 against all those teams. And he doesn't have the help of a Jeremiah Smith, a Carnell Tate, who did miss time, to be fair to Julian Sayin. Where do you kind of rank maybe that strength of schedule with a guy like he is 10-2, but in a much difficult schedule compared to the rest?
Yeah, I think it has to be factored in. You got to look at all of those things. I've had him in my not necessarily top 3, but certainly, I kind of have a top 3 and then sort of honorable mention, if you want to call it that, but 4, 5, 6 names beyond that. And he's always been right there nearby. Maybe not quite, the level of some of the other quarterbacks. And, we haven't mentioned Diego Pavia yet. And that's somebody who checks a lot of boxes. Speaking of the gauntlet and a tough schedule, playing an SEC schedule for a traditional bottom feeder school, talk about elevating a program in 2 years. That's pretty impressive to watch what he's done. The fact that he's done it both as a passer and with his legs. He's knocking on the door of 1,000 yards rushing with that schedule.
I think it was the first time in college football history that Tennessee and Vandy, the first time they played as both ranked opponents, and they went into Knoxville and beat them by 20. That was impressive. And
really impressive.
Touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly.
Really impressive.
And I think I think this is what I've loved so much about this college football season. And recently, if you have teams like Indiana, you have teams like Vandy, where these stories just attract you. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Netflix show, but just hearing to Clark Lee, the head coach for Vandy, and you talk about the transformation they've had in 2 years, I think that is what college football is about, and I'm glad that they're spotlighting those stories more.
I am too. There's great stories. And I think Fernando Mendoza, just the son of Cuban immigrants, and Pavia's story coming from New Mexico State, and to be able to reach this level. Even Julian Sayin, I found out about him when he was a sophomore in high school. And Ryan Gunderson, the UCLA quarterback coach, who was on the sideline at a high school game I was at, and he said, he was looking at quarterback the game we were watching, and he said, there's a sophomore at Carlsbad High who's really good. He didn't even say his name. He just, there's a sophomore at Carlsbad High who's really good. And we quickly found out who's he, it's Julian Sayin. And so I'm kidding some of my guys that I go to high school games with saying, we went to see the first game of his senior season at Carlsbad. What was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And they were playing at El Camino College here in the South Bay in Torrance, and they were playing Inglewood. Like, this will be a big game. They're moving it to a community college. I think there are more people in the Annenberg Media Center today than there were in the stands that night. So it's funny for me to look at the photos now. I just shared them with the guys. I remember this, and there's nobody in the stands. And here's a guy that's now on the verge of, being a Heisman finalist. certainly putting himself in position to be a contender for years to come.
Sure.
How long he spends in college. So I think that's a great story too. Brother played in the Ivy League, and he's a kid that looks like he's 14 years old. Probably always will. He has that real
young look to
kid
him.
You look but just so poised, so accurate, and just to take over a team after winning after they won a national title. That's not an easy gig.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, now it's on you.
And finally to beat Michigan.
And beating Michigan on the road.
On the road, yeah.
So, yeah, really impressive. This group, those kind of the big three of quarterbacks, and it's also not taking anything away from Jeremiah Love, who's had a fantastic season
year
running back Notre Dame. I think he's certainly right there. Probably trailing the quarterbacks, but has had a great season and has made a great name for himself, just sitting right there at just maybe outside of the top three.
Yeah, Jeff, I think it's fascinating to see this year, obviously, as you mentioned, a ton of great storylines and a great seasons. But I think compared to Heismans that we've seen in the past, statistically, these seasons have been a little less impressive, which I think makes the race that much closer. How would you say this year has compared to years in the past as a Heisman Trophy voter?
Yeah, Josh, I think that's a really good point. I think I might have mentioned this the last time I was on, is you don't ever want to be a slave to statistics. Otherwise, you could just choose the Heisman by whoever the leader was in the most categories. You try to look at the value that player is providing, and I think you can make a strong case for the kind of the top three in some order of Mendoza, Pavia, and Sayan as far as their value to the team. It hasn't been a year where you have the eye-popping stats like, when Caleb Williams won it, it was a no-brainer. It was just like he was doing.
He was holding USC by his shoulders pretty much.
Yeah, he was having Heisman moments every week.
Every week, yeah.
Piling up great numbers. Yeah. I mean, everything. The first year I voted was Tim Tebow.
Wow.
And it was, I say, boy, talk about like easy. Like that was, he was so dominant. It was just, not even a question. And then there are years occasionally when guys have had, really, really deserving seasons, and I felt probably should have won, didn't.
Yeah.
This is one where, it hasn't, it's required a little bit more, study and considering different categories, different variables as voters will do, however they do it. But I think it's in a good place that going into the weekend, there's still it's still really up for grabs.
Yeah,
that really makes it fun. I think it'll be part of the conversation during the games, throughout the games.
100%.
And I think people kind of have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, completely agree. Transitioning to another award, which you are not a voter for, but I'd love to hear both of your perspectives on, the Biletnikoff, the best wide receiver in the nation. Right now, it seems like a two-man race between Ohio State sophomore Jeremiah Smith and USC junior Mekhi Lemon. Jeff and Jude, I'd love to hear what you guys think on who should win the award and why.
I'm not even trying to sound biased here. I think Mekhi Lemon is the Biletnikoff. I think Jeremiah Smith has obviously still had a great season. He's missed one game. But when I look at Mekhi Lemon and his body of work, right, what can he do inside and outside as a receiver, both in the slot and outside? And there's nothing he can't do. I mean, to be honest, there's nothing he can't do. And, he doesn't have the frame when you look at it, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, it's crazy in my mind that Jeremiah Smith is 20 years old, right? Like, I mean, you look at his physique and you're thinking, is that Julio Jones just in a Ohio State uniform? It is crazy. But Mekhi Lemon doesn't have that. And he's still one of the best contested ball catchers in the nation. And every week he's making this play after play after play. Yeah. And like I said, he can do it inside the slot. He can do it outside. And of course it helps when you have, a 6'4" Jacoby Lane on the other side to take some of the attention. But this has been the Lemon year. So I would have to say Mekhi Lemon.
I've been saying this sort of since probably early in the season, maybe mid-season. I'm saying, you know what? Jeremiah Smith is an unbelievable player and pro prospect and like a high lottery pick whenever he comes out. But I think the best receiver in the country has been Mekhi Lemon. I see it every weekend. At some point, you trust your eyes.
Yeah.
You go beyond statistics. I mean, he has that covered too.
He does.
But even if he felt a little bit below statistically, I would still say what I am seeing and comparing him, as we all would do, to other receivers we've watched play.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed. I didn't even realize coming out of Los Alamitos High School, I saw him on both sides of the ball. Thought he was a really good cornerback potentially.
Yeah. And it almost bodes well for your receiver because then you can understand if you've played in the past.
Exactly. But I what I think of him, the word that comes to mind for me is tenacious. He competes so strongly for the ball every time it's up there that I have just this great confidence in him that he'll come down with it.
Yeah.
He's just so tenacious and determined. And that goes in addition to the route running and the hands. And I've been intrigued to read more about his own story and journey because where did this come from? Where he, even not having the great size, not being 6'3", 4", whatever, he's so reliable and he's so determined and acrobatic in catching the ball. I see a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown as far as
I agree.
Physically reminds me of him, but and also tenacious, like St. Brown is that way.
Very much a technician.
I think he's got a really, really bright future in the NFL.
I think he's going to play in a lot of Sundays for many years.
I completely agree. And again, not trying to be biased, but I tend to agree that Mekhi Lemon will take home the award. I mean, we say the eye test, but also statistics, 79 receptions, over 1,100 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. I think he's just been an anchor for USC this entire season. And I think Jane Mayava's had an incredible season, but I don't know if he has that same season without the safety blanket of Mekhi Lemon there. So,
and USC's going to notice it next year when he's not on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like what Tanook Hines has put together in his freshman season, but there's going to be a difference. There's going to be that wide receiver that you're missing with him off the field.
Now, I do think that the incoming freshman who I've seen play in person.
Booby Feaster?
Trent Mosley.
Oh, okay.
I am really, really high on him. Santa Margarita. They're going to play for the state title in a week against Concord de La Salle. He's more smooth, and you'll use him to carry the ball, like you'll use him on running plays. He's somebody that you could throw hitch passes to, and he gets space. I mean, he has a jet. Like he's sort of a hybrid receiver running back almost, but smooth. He's somebody I'm really high on. I think he could come in and get playing time as Hines did this year and next year.
I'm curious. You talk about, so we got to talk a little bit about USC's recruiting class. They were number one. It was the first time in 18 years a non-SEC school had finished atop those rankings. What did you make of just overall? Because me and Josh talked about it on Wednesday, specifically the emphasis on California recruits for USC.
Yeah, Jude, I think that was huge, and it was a glaring deficiency in my mind when you have this base of Southern California. Everybody talks about, hey, if you're in Southern California, if your school is anywhere close, you have that rich, fertile recruiting soil in Southern California. And then you look at a recruiting class a couple of years ago that was like, what was it? I think 20 of the 24 were from out of state.
Yeah, it was.
And it just didn't make sense to me. Now, it made sense in the sense that if your staff is heavy and you as a head coach are from another part of the country and you have great contacts and that I get, but then that just means you have to, whether it's hiring a staff that's a little bit more balanced where you can tap into Southern California, but I don't think you can just say, well, it's easier for us to recruit out of state. I think it has to be a priority because the football is so played at such a high level. I go out, like I said, I go to a high school game almost every week, and I have guys with us that are from around the country. They can't get over what they see every week. When we go to a game, there might be 20 kids that have gotten D1 offers.
I mean, when you have two of the best high schools in the nation in modern day in St. John Bosco, it's like, why are you letting Bryce Young go to Alabama? You know, why are you letting C.J. Stroud go to Ohio State? They should be staying in-state.
Yeah, and Bryce Young was committed here.
Yeah, he was.
I know because I spent time with him and his dad, Craig, here in the Annenberg building.
Really?
They had asked me, somebody on the football staff, to come and maybe if I minded, if I was willing to come talk about just communications and Annenberg because he was interested in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's do it. And we had a great talk, and God, probably talked 45 minutes, just three of us, and he committed about a month later, and his dad told me, I saw him in the fall, and his dad said, that conversation we had was really impactful of our decision to commit. But at that time, there wasn't the stability in the coaching staff.
That was Clay Helton around that time.
And when a lot of rumors about his future, and here you had Nick Saban, right there saying,
it's hard to say no to the Godfather.
It's hard to say no, and I think that's why people didn't, lose a lot of sleep over it, just because
weren't expecting it.
Yeah, it was just. But to your point, that you're a quarterback at Mater Dei in Orange County, you better be attractive enough that somebody doesn't feel like they have to go 2,000 miles away to school. And I think that's what the recruiting class reflected, was that it was a commitment to try to lock up Southern California as much as possible. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I think the homegrown talent was really important. Another thing Jude and I touched on Wednesday was recruiting in the trenches, getting offensive tackles, defensive tackles, because we saw this year Emmett Johnson, Jeremiah Love, a bunch of the Oregon running backs just running down USC's front seven's throats. So I think it's really important that Lincoln went out and got some highly recruited big guys to kind of make a difference and change the culture at USC.
Well, because I think each of the losses, what you've seen is real deficiency in stopping the run. And of course, you have to have a offensive line. I think the heart and soul of your team is really the offensive line. It affects how you run the ball, how you
jumps
pass.
Off the screen when you have a bad one.
Yes, it does. It really does. And you feel like you saw teams that were just picking up chunks of yards on the ground at key times against USC and the losses to Illinois, Notre Dame, and Oregon. So that clearly you had to shore that up.
Yeah.
And now it's developing that talent. And it was an interesting decision to go with the number of high school players, given how much that so many schools are relying on the
34
portal.
total, I believe. 34 total commits.
Yeah, and which is a high number considering how available and accessible the portal is to a school with USC's tradition to be able to draw players that are already proven. Yeah. But you want to have a balance. I think it's great to have a foundation, a strong foundation of high school talent, especially in Southern California.
I want to get your thoughts, talking about kind of the transfer portal as a whole. I'm not going to ask your opinions directly on Lane Kiffin because it's its whole own story, but I think it's very interesting right now how the calendar in college football is set up right now, that he kind of had to make that decision. What are your thoughts on college football kind of moving it to the fact where you play the national championship on January 1st and then that portal opens? Do you have any thoughts on kind of how the calendar works right now, and should they change it?
They absolutely should change it. I don't think it's fair for anybody to have to make decisions that quickly. To have a signing day even when it is. I've always felt that when I first heard that there's going to be an early signing period in football like there was in basketball, and basketball made sense. You can sign in November before your senior year, get it out of the way. If you want to make your decision, get it out of the way. And then there's also an April signing period.
Yeah.
So football has February, and I thought, well, that'll make sense. The first signing period will probably be end of August or beginning of September before the senior season in football. Instead, it was December. I'm thinking, well, that's not that far from February. Why wouldn't you do it? You want to do it so a player can get the decision out of the way and sort of relax and not feel pressure on the college front going into his senior year.
Yeah.
So the calendar absolutely needs to be changed. I think I'm okay with. Well, I mean, the idea of having another portal opening up. They've shut that down. The idea of post-spring practice, which that makes sense. I kind of didn't like the idea that players were still and coaches shopping around for players
in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of one player. I was covering USC football last year, and Gavin Meyer, who was one of the defensive linemen 2 years ago, he signed with USC in I believe June, which seems kind of crazy, and a turnaround to adjust to a new program, and then also have to learn a whole entire new offense or defense in his case. So I definitely do think switching the calendar should be something, because then you also have the situation that you put Lane Kiffin in, right, where he's, and I mean, it's, I don't want to say it's typical Lane Kiffin, but we've seen it before with Lane Kiffin.
The craziness seems to follow him.
Seems to follow
wherever.
But then even then, he didn't really have that decision because of the portal being open in the second. And if you want to get to a program and build it up, you need to to be at that portal, like you mentioned, the portal's so important now in college football.
Yeah,
So,
you do. It was a really hard position to be in. I think you could really debate whether or not you'd want someone to continue to coach after he's made a decision to leave. Why couldn't LSU have allowed him to coach and not make a decision? Well, that would have been a distraction. Every press conference would have been riddled with questions about what he was.
And knowing how Twitter works now, I think something would have come out. Something would have come out.
So I think a lot of thought needs to continue to go into refining the calendar so that players and coaches aren't put into the position that they are.
Yeah, to the points that both of you guys were making, now with the extended college football playoff, the championship game is on January 19th, but the portal opens January 2nd. So if you're a player on a top ranked team, but you don't like the situation you're in, it's difficult because then you're jumping ship you're jumping ship while
it's all sorts of
playoffs are still going on. I mean, you wouldn't even think about that in professional sports to have a free agency before the playoffs. So I think they really need to fix the scheduling and the timeline of everything so that we don't run into coaching decisions. Obviously, we saw it with Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU. We just saw it with Lane Kiffin. So I think it would really minimize a lot of the issues that are happening.
It's so wrong to think that a coach has it's one thing for a coach to opt out of a bowl game, just a bowl game.
Sure, yeah.
But to opt out essentially of a playoff game, like you worked, all season, your career in some cases, a player's career, 4, 5, 6 years, to get to be one of the 4 teams or now 12, like, wow, this is the payoff. Now you can go and take your shot at winning the whole thing. Memory of a lifetime. And you're not going to be there for it. Yeah. And again, we could debate on who was right, the athletic director or, the coach to say, maybe he wasn't given a choice, but I think I would just love to see the sport get on the same page that, allow a coach. Yeah. A coach should be given that. I think what UCLA is doing with Bob Chesney is the right thing to do. Like however long it's going to be, like he made that part of the terms. Is like I want to coach my team, and you should. Yeah. And that's an experience of a lifetime. Yeah. It's an experience for you as the coach and your family, but for the players to have their leader just check out.
What lesson is that teaching the kids who look at you as a role model and then you're just going to leave right before the biggest games of their career?
Yeah, Josh and I talked about it on Wednesday of I think I heard Joel Klatt say this was, if you're another coach and LSU's recruiting you and say you're, Florida, I mean, why not say Lane Kiffin, look what he did in the biggest moments of his, career so far. I mean, Ole Miss hadn't made the college football playoffs until this year.
Right.
And for him to, obviously there were stipulations, but for him to not commit to his team in the biggest moment, that's certainly something you want to think about as a player going to LSU, right? Is this just another stepping stone for Lane Kiffin to maybe get the Alabama job, maybe get an NFL job? But talking about one of his stops, which was USC multiple times as a head coach and a coordinator, let's talk about USC real quick, because you brought up this interesting statistic, a survey, in fact, that basically down the middle of 50% thought USC was a success this season, 50% didn't. Jeff Fellenzer, what is your take on USC football's season this year?
Well, you were referring to an LA Times poll. There were 886 votes cast answering the question did USC have a successful season given that they didn't qualify for the playoffs? Yeah. And there were 443 yes, they did votes and 443 no, they didn't. I was stunned when I saw this. And I think...
I'm sorry, what did stun you about just those results?
But just how, so I opened it up to my classes this week. I said, what'd you guys think? Do you think it was a successful season? 9-3, not making the playoffs?
Yeah.
It was just, I don't think I've ever seen a survey, any kind of survey that's ended in a complete dead heat. Yeah. But it just shows how strong opinions could be on either side of that question. I have a hard time thinking 9-3 isn't a successful season, but I think if you put it in the context of 40 years of the Lincoln Riley regime, I would just say I think the fan base would say from the moment he was hired through 4 years, you would expect to be in the playoffs, especially when the playoffs were expanded from 4 to 12.
Yeah.
Very hard to get in the top 4, but when it goes to 12, and if the result is the Alamo Bowl, I would say, again, and I love the Alamo Bowl because Derek Fox, the director, has been a friend for a long time. And Drew Fox, his son, was a student here and was in the USC football recruiting office. Derek said, I've always wanted to have USC in my event. But I think you have to, of course, you aspire to much greater heights, and your standard is high. So I'd say you're not satisfied. I don't know if I could call it successful. I hate to say 9-3 because 9-3 is a very good record, but in the context of the expectations, the commitment that the school has made, salary to the coach, the amenities, et cetera, I think it falls short. Now, I've heard a lot of opinions. Students of mine this week were the number 1 ranked recruiting class this year, taking a jump up in so many different areas. Defense better, the team looked better in the trenches this year. It seemed like the consensus I heard was they feel like the next step is about to be taken, and if there's not a playoff berth next year, then maybe we've hit a wall.
Maybe they expand to 24 and then we got you.
Yeah, Jeff, I think I completely agree. I think if this was Lincoln Riley's first year, it would definitely be a successful year because you're building towards something. And I think it's true. There's a lot of optimism, and there should be for first recruiting class, a 9-3 record, and like you said, a lot that was improved on. But when Jude and I got here our freshman year, we were spoiled a bit with Caleb Williams, but we almost had a playoff berth then, and it was the thought process was that within the next 3 years there would be a playoff berth, especially because it's got moved to 12 teams. I just think the 3 big games this year on the road at Illinois, at Notre Dame, at Oregon, we penciled it in before the season started. You had to come away and win one of those big games on the road, and it feels like Lincoln can't really get over the hump in those games. So I tend to agree that it is a little bit of, not a failure, but not necessarily a successful season. In my opinion.
And it's a little bit in the fashion that we lost those games. And I hate to say it because like we're all USC here, and it's easy to just be like, oh, this coach is terrible or he sucks. And Lincoln Riley, don't get us wrong, like an offensive genius, right? When you talk about where the offense ranks in yards and points, every season it's atop the list. But I just think back to like, especially that Notre Dame game, right? Where USC, I mean, that was a true chance for USC to put a statement win on their schedule.
Against a rival.
On a rival.
Right.
Potentially the last game versus Notre Dame and USC ever. And you're running a play action 4th and 1. Like, it was those little things that I saw from Lincoln Riley. And it's been a continuous thing through his career. I mean, I mentioned before the show, the last game he spent at Oklahoma, he lost to his rival in the biggest game for Oklahoma that season. And they lost. And he was on a flight the next day to USC. And so as much as I think there is that offensive guru, and yes, the recruiting class is great, but that doesn't define what this season was. And, Josh, you point to it. The 3 road games, every time you just come up just a little bit short. And there hasn't changed from the first year. It was the same thing. We went up to Utah, our freshman season in 2022, and you lost that game. I get it. There were maybe some missed calls whatsoever, but there's missed calls on both ways. You can't disagree with that. And then the Pac-12 championship, right? So it continues to be this big game situation with Lincoln Riley. He can't figure it out. And it's not just him. I'm not saying it's just on him. He obviously was a little too sentimental with Alex Grinch. I think that was one issue, and especially the first 2 years. Should have been like, look, you're a good friend of mine, and look, as a Cowboys fan, Jerry Jones was way too nice for Jason Garrett for about a decade. All right, so I had to deal with that. He was a little too nice to Jerry Jones, or Jason Garrett, I should say. But you can't be sentimental sometimes, right? You got to be hard nosed, and that's what he was with Alex Grinch. And so I just look at it as it's hard for me to call it a success when, sure, the trenches were maybe a little bit better. But the thing that has defined every season is those big games, and that hasn't changed in 4 years.
Yeah, I think we as you said, Josh, we're kind of saying, well, these are going to be the 3 really tough games is at Illinois, at Notre Dame, and at Oregon. And you in order to be able to call the season a success, I think you needed to win the other games, which again, kudos. I mean, that's it's not easy to do that. You still had to beat Michigan, you had to beat Nebraska at Nebraska. There's some good wins in there, but you needed to find a way to win one of those that people were sort of, setting aside and saying that's probably a loss, and saying, okay, we're going to show where we are now as a program, where we've come. And I would say not there yet. And, so there's reinforcements. There's been a good influx of talent with this recruiting class, but there's also a bit of a gauntlet with a schedule now.
I was about to say, Jeff, I have it pulled up right here. Home against Ohio State, home against Oregon, at Indiana, at Penn State, Happy Valley. Obviously, they're going through a lot of changes, but a very difficult place to play.
Could be a whiteout game.
There are a lot of really tough games on the schedule. So to your point, there are a ton of improvements, but I don't know if the record is going to represent those improvements because we're playing such hard teams next year. So it'll be interesting to see what Lincoln Riley and the staff can do going forward.
Yeah, totally. Well, Jeff, we appreciate your time once again. This is not the last time we will probably have you on the show.
I will always look forward to spending time with you guys.
We appreciate it. Well, it's the J trifecta.
J cubed.
the J trifecta, as we can now call it.
Happy to be one of the 3 J's. Outstanding.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you. Happy holidays.
You too.
Appreciate
good luck with the voting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very excited to see what the final ballot looks like.
Yep. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Yeah.
Back here for the B block here on the Talk of Troy Friday, and now you got J squared. The J trifecta has left the building, but you still got J squared in the building here. Man, it's funny just talking with him. I actually feel we said it last time, but you could actually talk to him for hours. Like honestly, I looked at time. I was like, oh, like we're going a little bit over, but that's fine.
Just kept going. I mean, you're not going to stop him when he's sharing all the wisdom that he has, been around the sports business and media industry for decades, and all the connections he has and how much he knows. Like we brought up Makai Lemon, and he goes into his high school recruiting.
Exactly.
Just those tidbits are so invaluable. So it's always great to have him on.
Well, let's stay in the college route as we talked mainly in that first block. Let's talk about conference championship games. Let's talk about it quick. We don't got to do the in-depth analysis because there's 3 big ones. There's 3 big ones, and that's starting with the Big
JMU.
Start with the Big 12 championship, 9 a.m. bright and early. We got BYU versus Texas Tech. Now, they faced off already this season, and Texas Tech, let's just say, manhandled them. I think it was 29-7, I believe, was that score. And clearly the line is showing that, Vegas is showing that Texas Tech is favored 12.5 in this game. Josh, is the Red Raiders going to do it again?
Jude, what's the saying? History repeats itself? I think that is 100% the case on Saturday. I just think this front 7 of Texas Tech is way too dominant. I think BYU has had a fantastic season, but Texas Tech wants to go out there, win this game, clinch a first-round bye in the college football playoff, and I think they're just going to be way too dominant on the defensive end for BYU. I have them winning and covering. How about you,
I would probably say the same exact thing. Winning and covering. I think this BYU team, as much as they're going to be fighting for their lives because they want to make the college football playoffs, but unfortunately the Red Raiders are in front of them. Moving on, the SEC championship game. Now, the interesting thing about these next 2 games is I don't want to say that all these teams are already locked in for the college football playoffs, but it does feel like most of these teams, it's hard for them to get bounced out unless dramatic measures happen, especially in the SEC championship.
SEC, because I think the committee has said over and over again that they're not going to penalize a team for playing in their conference championship. Exactly. Alabama earned the right to play. Obviously, they already have 2 losses. Unless they get absolutely dog walks.
And we're talking like 50-0.
Yeah, it would have to be 3+ scores in dramatic fashion for Bama not to get in, wherever, Notre Dame and Miami, wherever you're crying right now. I don't care. Alabama's had a better year than you. So I think it's going to be a great game, a rematch. I mean, Ty Simpson and Bama went into Athens last game and got the win. I think this time, Gunnar Stockton in Georgia, they're going to ground and pound. The defense is going to show up. Give me Georgia.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take Georgia in this game, too. I looked back at it, and Georgia actually held them to 0 points in that second half of even the Georgia-Alabama game that they played earlier. I'm going to take Georgia. I think 2.5. I think they win by a field goal here.
It'll be great. Jude, last, the big behemoth of them all, the Big Ten championship, undefeated Indiana Hoosiers against the undefeated Ohio State Buckeyes. With Heisman implications, as we just talked about with Jeff Fellenzer, who do you got?
Well, you feel like Ohio State is the Kansas City Chiefs of, college football because you're just like, they always goddamn win. Like, you don't
always do it.
And I got a great friend who's a huge Ohio State fan. So to see him kind of sad would make me happy, as any, friend of a big team would be. But Ohio State's going to win this game.
Yeah, dude.
The story is great. The story is great with Indiana, Kurt Signetti and everything about it. Fernando Mendoza, even from Cal, and now to, playing for Indiana and potentially a Heisman. It's crazy on itself, but when I look at this offense, I mean, we've talked about it already. Julian Sand, he's playing out of his mind as a freshman. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate is finally back. Like I mentioned, Bo Jackson, their running back, has been really good. And then, I mean, there's no questions this is the best defense in college football in the nation.
One of the best defenses we have ever seen from a statistical standpoint. Obviously, we mentioned on Wednesday, 7.5 points a game allowed, which I don't think Fernando Mendoza has seen Matt Patricia's schemes yet this kind of season of this defensive greatness. Caleb Downs, Avril Reese, just so many guys. I am praying Indiana wins. I despise Ohio State. My mom, wherever she is, she went to the University of Michigan, so I grew up hating Ohio State as much as I hate Notre Dame and UCLA now. So I hope Indiana pulls it out. It'd be a great story. That being said, I just think Ohio State is too overpowered. What is interesting to see, though, is what we talked about with Fellenzer is no matter what happens in this game, both these teams are pretty much locked for a first-round bye.
I would say, top 4.
If at least a first-round bye, and probably will still maintain the 1 and 2 seed, barring anything crazy. So I think it's interesting to see whoever wins this game might not necessarily win it all. We saw what happened with Ohio State losing to Michigan last year and then coming back and steamrolling the college football playoffs.
This is a good measuring stick, though.
Yes.
This is a very good measuring stick, specifically for Indiana, right? Because Indiana, you look at their wins this season, I think I chalked it up to, they really only played 3 AP top 25 teams. Obviously, the big one on the road versus Oregon, but they beat Iowa, Illinois. I'm not going to say that those aren't good wins, but compared to the rest of the field, I would say not as great as the other teams. But I do think this is a great measuring stick because if they come out and they look flat, that's not just, okay, you lost the Big Ten championship. That's like, okay, what can we expect from the college football playoffs?
Yeah, going forward, because there are a lot of other great teams in the college football playoff. I know I said my dark horse on Wednesday, Texas A&M. If Indiana gets steamrolled and their confidence shifts a little bit, it might be difficult for them to come back. I mean, last year, obviously it was played at the Shoe in Columbus, but Ohio State, Indiana was undefeated up until that point. Ohio State beat them 38-15. So I think it will be a good measuring stick. I hope Indiana can keep it close because if you can see Signetti and the improvement, if they even lose by a score, to go from losing by 23 to then losing by 7, I think that shows the improvement year to year and how much the gap is closing.
Well, the line is pretty close in this one. It's only 4 points favoring Ohio State. So obviously, we'll see. I mean, I'd probably take Ohio State to cover.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Moving forward to someone who said they didn't play college ball, but if they did, they would be an Ohio State Buckeye. LeBron James has officially ended his dramatic streak of 10-plus games in, I think it was 1,297 games straight with 10-plus points in the regular season.
Gonna get to 1,300.
1,300. Jude, what are your thoughts?
The way that it happened, I was very happy because it was a kick out to Rui Hachimura for the game winner against a very good Toronto Raptors team, might I add. But look, all great things have to come to an end eventually. And you know what? I have to say, I love LeBron James' comment after when he was asked about the streak. And he said, I don't have any reaction. We won. And, I know I've been critical of LeBron James on this show before. But I will mention that I think the role that he has taken on, and now that he's kind of accepted that role, and I think it was good. He probably did some self-evaluation, saw that this team, look, they don't need me to be a 30-point scorer.
No.
They don't need me to. Obviously, I would still be great to have his streak and his 10-point streak.
For sure.
But that's not what it's about anymore. It's about playing winning basketball. And the Lakers, they're playing winning basketball. So the fact that it ended, obviously it was sad, but I look at it and say, you know what? This is the LeBron that we can have, right? He could have taken that layup, but he saw Rui Hachimura in the open corner and trusted his teammate.
Yeah.
He trusted his teammate to make that shot. And honestly, when you get in the playoffs, when you get in those big-time moments, those are those moments in the season that matter. When you can trust, okay, I got Rui Hachimura out there. I know he's done it before. I'm going to kick it out. I know he's going to make it.
Yeah, and I think to put in perspective LeBron's greatness in longevity, the current streak is at 267 games by Kevin Durant. If KD wanted to match LeBron's streak, he would have to play until he was 50. I think Jordan had the previous record at around 800 games.
Yeah, 866.
866.
Yeah.
So near 1,300 games straight in the regular season with 10-plus points.
Should we put it out there? Is there anybody that we think that could potentially get to this?
Ooh, that's great.
Do we think there's anyone? I mean, it's got to be a young player.
It's got to be a young player. I wonder what Luka's at right now. I think it could potentially be Luka. It depends. It's all about longevity. So someone's going to have to play until they're 40, like LeBron. I don't know. Someone like Wemby maybe, but the injuries could be tough. I'm interested to see what Jokic is at right now.
Yeah, Giannis probably. Yeah, I guess Giannis is like 29. Is he 30 at this point?
I don't know how it's 200.
267 is
That means they need over 1,000 games straight.
It's probably not a player in the NBA right now. It's probably not NBA.
It'd have to be.
I'm gonna say Cameron Boozer with Duke right now. I'm gonna say Cameron Boozer.
I'm gonna say Deuce Tatum when he finds his way to the league. But just a testament to LeBron and how fantastic he's been. Talking about someone who has been fantastic this year and a blossoming star on the Lakers.
Yeah.
Austin Reeves. How has he elevated your Lakers squad?
Every which way, honestly. And I've talked to my dad about this. I think. Not only was having Luka great, just have Luka, but I didn't think about this either. I really didn't think about this until this season. The impact that Luka has had on Austin Reeves is monumental. I mean, there were shots last night. I swear there was a shot that I was thinking of Austin Reeves. The Austin Reeves shot, he was at the elbow and he gets fouled and he puts up this circus shot. And it's one of those shots that you only see two Europeans make, Jokic and Doncic.
Mm-hmm.
And now Austin Reeves is making that type of shot. And he has one 40-point game this season. He has one 50-point game this season. And you just watching him, I mean, he doesn't look like Luka, but he's playing with the pace that Luka plays with.
Mm-hmm.
He's not sporadic. He's taking his time. Look, you have to understand, Austin Reeves, he's not the most athletic dude in the NBA. We saw it against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And obviously defense has to get better on both ends. So Doncic hasn't taught him much there. But I think overall, as a player, he has developed into an all-star. Austin Reeves is an all-star this season.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think he's shooting 88% from the line. I think if drawing contact, getting a line, his three-point game has evolved a ton. And he's averaging 29.
Yeah.
Austin Reeves is averaging 29 in the year of 2025.
Bill Billy Kobe.
I think it's just, I remember watching him at Oklahoma. This was an undrafted rookie that signed with the Lakers. And to see his growth year after year, to go from 7 points per game, 13, 19, 22, and now he's averaging 29. It's been a joy to watch his evolution.
And he actually,
as a player.
The backstory on that is he actually declined. He was originally going to be picked in the second round, but some teams were like calling to draft him. He declined all of them because he wanted to sign with the Lakers as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
So you got to talk about the confidence of someone who was undrafted, came from middle of nowhere Arkansas, played for Oklahoma, and says, no, I want to be on the Lakers. And now that the fact he's etched himself in as a starter and a marquee starter on the Los Angeles Lakers, you can't talk enough about how impressive his story is. A journey, I should say, to where he is at this point.
Yeah, it's fantastic. One other, before we move on to some other stuff in basketball, I just need to talk about one other player's greatness. So for our listeners, box plus minus, BPM in the NBA, is an advanced basketball stat that measures a player's contribution to the team while on the court in terms of point differential per 100 possessions. So let's say their BPM is 5. It means every 100 possessions, that player gains 5 more points than the average for their team than the average player in the league. So in Jordan's 87-88 MVP year, his BPM was 12.96. Great year. SGA last year, 13.09. LeBron's 2008-2009 season MVP, 13.24. And then there's Jokic. This year, 17.42.
Yeah. He's MVP.
He has 4 other years of 13+. If you look at the Basketball Reference, the top 4 years are all Nikola Jokic. I mean, we have to start having some difficult conversations.
I was just about to ask, is it crazy to say by the end, and I know I don't want to get too long shot, and I don't want to steal the words out of your mouth. Is it crazy to say he could finish as a top 5 player all time?
I mean,
I legitimately, I'll just bring up this stat that I saw. Ranking in NBA this decade per category. This is Nikola Jokic's rankings in this decade, the 2020s. He's first in points, first in rebounds, first in assists, first in steals. He's first in everything else. Wins, double-doubles, triple-doubles, MVPs, and obviously, like you mentioned, box plus minus.
I mean, it's unbelievable to see year in and year out. his game, there's nothing flashy about the game, but he is just so unbelievably consistent, and his IQ and passing abilities are so unbelievable. He's averaging 29, 12.5, and 11 assists on 61% shooting. I mean, this is just unheard of. So, yes, I mean, it's crazy to put him by the end of his career in a top 5 conversation, but he keeps producing. He keeps winning.
And to be fair, he should, and I know it's crazy, maybe not last year, but he should have at least have 4 MVPs.
Yeah, the one over Embiid for sure. I think an argument can definitely be made for SGA.
Sure, they were number 1 in the West.
There's SGA last year. But another thing about Jokic, like you said, wins. The Nuggets are consistently a perennial team in the West. I think if he can pick up 2 to 3 more championships and finals MVPs, there's some real conversations that have to be happening with Nikola Jokic because this stuff is just unbelievable. It's unfathomable.
Yeah, it is unfathomable. And actually, I got the opportunity last Friday. I was with my cousins in Denver, and I actually went to a Nuggets game.
Oh.
Unfortunately, they lost. Actually, not. I shouldn't say unfortunately. As a Lakers fan, fortunately, they did lose. But it was the Devin Vassell game because he had like 33. But even in a game where Nikola Jokic had 16, 10, and like 9 or so, he didn't even have his crazy game compared to the other stats he puts up. You just, every time, when he has the ball, there is an immediate confidence that rises in the offense, but also just an immediate threat that everyone else feels with Nikola Jokic in the ball, having the ball, I should say. And it's every time they're down lane. When he's off the court, there is a glaring difference. Glaring difference. And this is no disrespect to Jonas Valanciunas, who's still a good player. And you can kind of tell that Jokic just taught him some things during the summer. But even then, just the glaring difference of how the offense operates. There are passes, and I didn't even see one live that was unthinkable. I mean, it's crazy to say he did just a behind the back that at this point just seems normal.
Yeah, normal.
But there are passing lanes that you just legitimately see, and it's harder to see on TV. To be fair, you're like, how do you see that? How do you see that?
How do you see that? And how do you have the confidence to throw that behind the head? You don't even know Aaron Gordon's cutting, but he knows the game so well and knows where all of his guys are going to be. It's very similar to LeBron in the way he can move in offense and move defenders around.
Yeah.
And just some of these passes that Jokic makes, I think, makes him so special. And then everyone talks about him as a playmaker. It's that quote of Tyronn Lue. He's like, we wanted to shut him down as a playmaker, and he drops 55 on the Clippers. I think it's so unbelievable to see, and it's a joy to be able to watch him.
Yeah, it is. He needs to get an NBA Cup title, though, first.
Oh, needs an NBA Cup title. Be up there with Giannis and Bron.
But lastly, before we go, it is wrapping up. Not the NFL season, but fantasy football season is wrapping for most people this week, week 14 here. Josh, takeaways, how's the team doing? Are you a playoff team? How many leagues are you in?
Okay, so a lot of questions there. I'm in 3 leagues. I have a league with my USC friends here. I have a league with my home friends back in Westfield, New Jersey. And then I have a league with my camp friends where I went to summer sleepaway camp. So 3 different leagues. And sometimes it can be a little chaotic. You're rooting for a guy that you're on your team and you're playing against. You got to manage a lot of things. But it's good. It keeps the mind sharp. It keeps the brain intact on the football season. So I have one league where I'm 9-4. I clinched already.
Nice.
Another league where I am 8-5, clinched. And then unfortunately, one of the leagues got away from me. I think I'm 4-9 and did not make the playoffs. But I think it's very important that I'm in 2 of the playoffs because when it gets to the playoffs, anyone has a shot.
Anyone has a shot. And I think my biggest issue this year, Jude, was I think I have too much loyalty to my players. I've gotten some good offers. I'm the opposite.
Where I think the thought of trading a guy away and him going off and me looking stupid with that decision, it would haunt me. So I think I made a couple small trades, but specifically in my USC league, the one I'm 9-4, my team is called the Fighting JTs because Jonathan Taylor is my entire team, and he is my MVP. I love him, but I would rather lose the league with him than lose without him. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, he can take me to the fantasy championship and win me some money. In my other league, we did a keeper league. Do you know?
Yeah, sure. How many are you keeping?
So you get to keep one guy, and I drafted JSN in the 8th round last year.
Wow.
So I was like, just keep JSN. I'll lose an 8th round pick. I'll keep JSN. And oh boy, was that a great decision. So very happy with JSN. So those are my 2 guys. Hopefully they can lead me to the promised land. Jude, How are you looking?
Yeah, well, it's been the opposite. You talk about loyalty to your players. That has been the complete opposite. Let's start with the war crime of all war crimes. It's trading Jackson Smith-Njigba. That man, and I'm not even trying to defend it because it was a terrible trade. It truly was. But I needed to get Ashton Genty off my team. I could not. Every time I watched a Raiders game and Ashton Genty was on my team, it's like, what am I doing? Like he's literally he carries the ball. And before he even gets to the line of scrimmage, he was already tackled. So I was like, I need a change of scenery. So I trade JSN. It was a bad trade. There's no denying it. It haunts me forever.
Do you want to share? I know you said earlier on in the year, but do you want to share with the viewers what the trade was?
Yeah, so it was JSN and Javonte Williams. JSN and Ashton Genty for Javonte Williams and Devontae Adams. I got Devontae Adams and Javonte Williams. And, Devontae Adams, to be fair, has been a great fantasy receiver. I mean, he is a touchdown machine. He is a touchdown machine. So we're going to forget about the trades. I'm not doing very well in my USC league. Unlike Josh, I'm actually 4-8. I am trying not to do the punishment. This week 14 is my Super Bowl. It is my Super Bowl. But I'm in also another league with one of my hometown friends. And I'm actually doing pretty well. I'm 85.
Okay, nice.
But I had that dilemma yesterday. I'm playing against, and you talk about like when you're in these different.
Yes.
So in this league that I'm 4-8, where I have no shot, but I just don't want to do the punishment, I was playing against George Pickens. But in the league where I'm 8-5 and I need to clinch this week, I have George Pickens.
Whoa.
So the cognitive dissonance that I had to show was absurd. But like I said, CMC was my MVP, no question about it. I actually got ridiculed for picking him at 4th overall in the draft.
Oh man,
the questions were there because the health.
The health. That's the only thing with health. Because every time CMC is healthy, I mean, he's a bona fide top 3 player in the league.
I mean, he might be a top 3 receiver. I mean, the way he's catching the ball. I mean, he was close to. He's not leading the league in receptions anymore.
He's top 5.
He's top 5 for sure. And I mean, he pretty much is the leading reception holder for the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, by a ton.
The one takeaway I will have, and this is definitely going to be going into my draft next year, you got to get a good tight end. You got to get a good tight end because I kid you not, I've gone through probably like 3 or 4 tight ends at this point. I've never had a consistent. I had Gatson, but to be honest, Gatson in these last few weeks hasn't been doing great. I had Mason Taylor starting at one point. Like it was
Mason Taylor.
It was all sorts of bad. So I think one of my big things is getting a guy like Trey McBride, TJ, Warren. Just someone that is reliable because those 12, 11 points are huge, right?
Huge.
You can have guys, and now that they're kind of versatile hybrid guys, it's certainly big. But Josh, I think we got to wrap it up here.
Yes.
So
really quickly, because you mentioned punishment. I know we're taking a little bit of a break from Talk of Troy as Jude and I go on our winter break. That being said, for the Survivor Pool, we will still be making picks.
Yes.
Every week, we'll be sending them to each other, staying honest, and when we come back from the break and Talk of Troy continues, we will update you guys on who will be jumping from the 40-foot high dive at the Lions Center.
Because it should be done by then.
It should be.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
But, Jude, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Sharing this desk with you all semester. J Squared, signing off. I'm Joshua Sacher.
And we'll be back next year. I'm Jude Ocanas.